We were a little disturbed when we heard about the allegations that were made against you by Wriddhiman Saha.
I'm aware of the sanctions. I'm mindful of them.
Today, a very special guest is joining me, Boria Majumdar. He is a Rhodes scholar, one of India's finest commentators, and the author of the latest book, Maverick Commissioner, the IPL Lalit Modi saga. First of all, thank you so much for joining us and thank you for this copy of this wonderful book. It's come out really well, sir.
Thank you very much, Sharan. Thanks for having me on your show. Pleased that you read the book and you liked it. Glad.
I did read the book completely, and it's really well written. And the initial setting of the book is in Bangalore, and I am from Bangalore, so it made it even more interesting because there's a lot of important events that take place in Bangalore, whether it's the Chinnaswamy Stadium, where you've spent a significant amount of time watching the IPL and other formats of the game, or some of the hotels that have been mentioned in Bangalore, where some of these so-called agreements were signed and deals were signed. But let me begin by asking you this. When we go to the blurb of your book, these are the words that's written. If you go to Modi's Twitter profile and see the display photograph, it was him impeccably dressed, looking up at the heavens. He made the IPL and in doing so had written his own destiny, the meteoric rise and subsequently an even more meteoric fall. Will the BCCI accept Lalit ever again? I must ask, why this open ended question? Is it not a tad bit late to be asking that, to be honest? According to you, what are the possibilities that Lalit Modi can have as the slightest glimmer of hope that he can make a possible return to India?
Because he's Lalit Modi. Had it been somebody else, I would have ruled it out. Somebody who can create the IPL, which fetches 50,000 from one deal and 12,000 from the two teams. So you're actually talking about 150,000 crore ecosystem. Obviously, can do things which are out of the box and out of the ordinary. In a recent interview, I was hearing him say that he's got one FIR pending in Chennai. Otherwise, he's won that. Yes, the Mumbai High Court case, both of us know. So whether he will come back or he will not come back is obviously to him. If he does come back, it will be a sequel to this book, is what I can tell you, and we'll do another show. But because it's Lalit Modi, I've kept it open-ended. If you read Abhinav Bindra's autobiography, the last line is just in case. And he talks about his gun, his range at home, and the pellets and everything impeccably kept there just in case. In Lalit's case, it's almost the same. Because, I'm sure if there is even one iota of hope, he will try to make it count. Can he make it count is a different question. That is not for me to answer because I'm not Lalit. Having said that, and you've read the book, Sharan, you've seen what all he could have done or had done. Clearly, this guy is a maverick. And for somebody like that to try an out-of-the-box thing and look, at the core of it, the sport is political. So in politics, it's never say never. Anybody who tells you cricket and politics doesn't mix, that is a wrong statement. It is absolutely political, always will be. Something which is to the humongous magnitude of 200,000 crores or similar in 4 years in India or 5 years in terms of the total value. If that is not political, then nothing will be political. So that is why I've kept it open-ended. I don't know. If you ask me, do you have an answer? I don't have an answer. But I do think if he gets that, and who's his lawyer? Harish Salve, India's best. So if he gets that Chennai High Court, FIR quashed, will Lalit give it an attempt? Knowing Lalit or having read Lalit while writing this book, almost everything that came out on Lalit, having interviewed him, to trying to understand the man, he might well give it a shot.
You've met Lalit Modi, and I read your recent column in Open Magazine. So how has he changed as a person? Did you feel that there was a difference from the Lalit that you were writing about in the book? Because I think the book also conveys a particular journey that Lalit Modi had as an individual. You could see that when the controversy started and when there was a couple of incidents that led to his downslide, even his personality slightly changed.
See, I've met Lalit and I've interviewed Lalit multiple times, and I must tell you this, that the confidence hasn't waned. That's number one. The belief in something that he has created hasn't gone. Deep down, there is this inherent belief that it is his creation, and that is the truth. I mean, in another interview, I actually said this, that, none of us can deny Lalit the fact that he created the IPL. You and I can differ in the manner in which he ran the IPL, and I do, in terms of some of his actions or statements. But the fact that he created the IPL cannot be denied. And that was repeatedly coming through even during our last interview. Because I distinctly remember him refusing that interview, and then that whole sequence, which I've described in detail in the book, him literally dragging me out onto High Street, Kensington, and then telling me he's not scared. So that is him. The persona is still very Lalit, the confident man who came in to the Wankhede Stadium in a helicopter despite knowing that it's done. So someone who can do that, I mean, he's a showman, right? So that's how he will always be. And that is what fascinates me about him, in the good and the bad. And let me make this clear, Sharad. This is not a biography of Lalit Modi. This is not a whitewashed book. You read it. There are very many critical parts of it. This is not going to be a biopic of Lalit Modi. It is going to be a film on the making of the IPL and what happened behind the scenes and how things went wrong between Lalit and the board. So this is the most objective account that I could have possibly written based on hundreds of hours of interviews and research. So that's what it is.
I was actually coming to that, and I'm glad you brought this up, because anybody today, even an event like cricket is extremely political in nature, and everybody has opinions, especially because of the magnitude with which, events like IPL is conducted, for that matter. So anybody who reads this book and has a slight disagreement with it will say that this is a glorification of a particular personality.
No, it's not. It's absolutely not. I mean, and that is point number one. That is why I did not talk to Lalit in the last 2 years, and I'm putting it on record. I've interviewed Lalit many times. I did not send Lalit the manuscript. I did not want Lalit to read the manuscript, because I did not want him to want him to say, oh, why are you putting this? Why are you putting that? This is not his biography. This is my book. And I'm extremely clear about it. This is Boria Majumdar's research and take on the formation of the IPL, the way Lalit Modi created the IPL, and I have given him as much credit as he deserves. But then I have tried to chronicle and document how things went wrong between Lalit and the board and what led to his fall. That's the book. This has nothing to do with the glorification of Lalit or the vilification of Lalit. I am not interested in either. I am not judging Lalit. I am narrating the story. Whether Lalit is a messiah or a devil is for you guys to decide, having read the book. I am not taking a position on Lalit.
You state somewhere in the beginning of the book that Sahara Subrata Roy asked you to bid on behalf of him for 2 cities.
Not me. It's Abhijit.
Okay.
I've written, it was Abhijit Sarkar who actually was, he was part of the launch. I've quoted Abhijit. Subrata Roy asked Abhijit to bid on behalf of Sahara. And Abhijit, if you followed my launch in Calcutta, he narrated the story. And it was actually 1 day before the first bids. So they went and submitted the bid. Lalit accepted the bid, and he even gave me the figure. It was $83.1 million, which was the highest. So, but because they had sort of exceeded the timeline, they were 24 hours before, and the timeline was the bids had to be submitted 48 hours. Now I'm quoting Abhijit for you. He said, we would not have gone had Lalit not called us. Lalit called Subrata Roy Sahara and said, yes, send the bid. That is why when Abhijit took the bid and went to Mumbai and handed the bid over. But then two of the existing franchises, objected, saying that the deadline was over. How can they submit the bid? And obviously the bid was rejected. But if that bid was accepted, and he made this point very clearly in the launch in Kolkata, Kolkata Knight Riders would have gone to Sahara India because their bid was more than Shah Rukh Khan's KKR.
I don't know the backstory of the question I'm going to ask you. The second city that he bid for was Kanpur, but was there a particular reason that Subrata Roy wanted Kanpur as the first choice and not perhaps Lucknow or something?
This I also don't know why Kanpur, but whether it is for their business interests or not, frankly, that was not something that I was invested in. I was asking him the facts, that which were the two cities you bid for. Kolkata was number one, Kanpur was number two. The values he had given me, one was 83.1 million and the other was close to that. So clearly, if you check the existing bids, Rajasthan, if I remember, was 67. So Sahara would have got it. Had the bids been accepted, either or, he would have, I mean, they would have got one of the teams. But that's how it is. I mean, Sahara then later got that team for 2 years and it went into litigation, and you know that story. But that's what makes the IPL so fascinating, that there are these backstories, multiple backstories which have not come to light. And that, I think, is the strength of the book, or the research which I was able to do thanks to the help of so many people.
You know, what is with Lalit Modi's obsession with the Mercedes S-Class? Because you've written about that as well. And a lot of his quirks, as he got powerful and more popular in India.
Green chilies to Mercedes.
You actually interviewed him. Have you ever had the chance to ask him about some of these quirks?
I've seen it, not asked. I mean, every minute of Lalit's interviews at that point would be intense discussion on cricket and controversy and what went on, and everything else. But I've seen it and I've got it corroborated. Someone who can use the Rambagh Palace suite, someone who can use the Four Seasons floor, someone who has these green chilies all the time, and the Mercedes S-Class. And by the way, this Mercedes S-Class story was corroborated to me by multiple head honchos of the board, including the top management of the board who I've interviewed. So, and it is not based on one source. It is based on multiple sources. So and that's what makes the man so colorful. I mean, for me, on the one hand, you know that, there is a problem brewing. On the other hand, you are actually trying to address that problem, and you're saying, without a Mercedes S-Class, I won't go. So clearly you are a maverick, and that's what I think lends to good cinema. So if Vishnu Induri and Vibri Motion Pictures, who did 83, are able to do justice to it, it can make great cinema. So I'm looking forward to that.
And to the jar of green chilies that he carries everywhere, which is fascinating. You cannot imagine a man like Lalit Modi carrying around green chilies.
Who told me this? Who first mentioned the green chilies to me? So this was in an interview with Shashank Manohar. He said, "Tune Lalit ka green chilies dekha hai kya?" So I said, "Sir, kya keh rahe hain aap?" He said, "Lalit and his green chilies." The first person who mentioned Lalit Modi's green chilies to me was Shashank Manohar.
Right. That's interesting. On a serious note, somewhere in the middle of the book, you mentioned that per the agreement signed in Bengaluru's ITC Gardenia with the Kochi franchise, when the entire controversy actually began, and Tharoor's name also got involved in this, is it legally speaking not unethical what Lalit Modi did? Because at the end of the day, he did break the confidentiality clause that was mentioned in the agreement, which was clause number 19.1 of the agreement.
See, that is what the BCCI eventually ruled against him for, and he was told by the BCCI top management that night that he was under compulsion to sign it, because it was his appointed technical committee which had cleared the bid. It was his team which had accepted the bid. So once they had got the bid, what was the reason for the delay? Obviously, if you read the prolonged legal agreement arguments between Lalit and the board, obviously Lalit had his side of the story, which was overruled by Mr. Jaitley, by Chirayu Amin, by Shashank, and the BCCI side. So again, if you ask me, the way it panned out, and this question will always be asked, that if they won the bid fair and square, why was Lalit not signing it? And that is what makes it so interesting. What I was told was that had he not signed it, the board president would have gotten, at that point in time, the secretary, Mr. Srinivasan, to have signed it and overruled Lalit Modi. And because the IPL is a subcommittee of the BCCI, they would have anyway allowed the Kochi franchise. So if you see it from that standpoint, they were basically saying to him that not signing was not legal. That's what the implication is. And again, these are very interesting ones. Why would he put it out on Twitter, the whole shareholding pattern? Question comes, why did he not put out the other 8 teams? Was it anger? Was it something else? Why was he not signing it? Is there a backstory to that? Did he want someone else? So these are questions which have to be, and I've tried to address it to the best of my ability in the book, but that's what makes that entire period of Indian cricket so fascinating.
Even if Lalit Modi makes a return to India and Indian cricket, these are the questions that will be hounding him for a very long time.
You know what? I mean, all said
Or do
and
you
done,
think it's a
all said
closed
and done.
chapter?
Let's give him this. Let's give him this. The IPL was done in an ad hoc manner.
Yeah.
No doubt. The IPL was perhaps done not in the most sort of, okay, it was not a straight line or a linear legal straight line. But the question that I keep asking myself, and not simply to you, could he have done it any other way? What was he selling? He was not selling an asset. Today, you and I are selling a book, a stadium, or something. What was Lalit Modi selling to India's biggest industrialists in 2008? He was selling an idea. Now, for them to be able to buy into his idea, it was a difficult ask. Could he have done it differently? The answer is I don't know. Maybe the ad hocism was needed. So I don't think history will judge him like that. I think, again, like I said, we have to give him credit for what he did. Had he not done it that way, would we have an IPL? Maybe not. Could he have done things differently after he set it up? Maybe yes. That is why he is this kind of a personality who polarizes the good and the bad, the black and the white, the gray. And he has all these shades, which is why I don't think there is a right and wrong answer for Lalit Modi.
Right.
Will he be hounded? Will he be praised? See how he polarizes social media every time he makes a statement, right? So my job as a chronicler of history was to write it to the best of my ability and put it out there for the viewers, the readers, and the listeners to check this is what happened. And I've done that.
I know that the producers and perhaps the cast of the new movie that is going to come out based on your book are your close friends, and this may upset them. But generally, whenever a movie is being made out of a book, there are parts that are lost in transition. There is a possible chance of glorification, and there is a possible chance that it's dramatized to a certain extent. So, would you be okay with that, or how do you envision this playing out on screens? Because in the book, you are a chronicler, and as you say, you've tried to stay out of the binaries.
I think it's a very good question. If you actually see Indian cinema in the last 3-4 years, and this is largely the influence of OTT platforms, what is actually selling is gray. What is actually selling is dark and negative. So if the producer or the director tries to do a linear story and tries to whitewash, I don't think it will work. So it is in their commercial interest and business interest to stick to objectivity and portray it as it is. Because if you see all your platforms, whether it's an Amazon or a Netflix or a Sony or a Hotstar, whichever platform, all of the OTT serials that you and I have seen and appreciated, they have the element of gray. That is the new trend. And that is why Lalit Modi lends himself so beautifully to good cinema, because he has all these layers. The moment you whitewash him, either you vilify him or you glorify him, you lose the plot. So I don't think they will want to do that.
I'll not ask too many questions going further because it's going to reveal a lot of spoilers. And I think I've already covered 5 or 6 chapters of the book. And I think everybody has to read it because to me, when I read the book, there was already a picture in my mind which was playing. I think it is very reader friendly for anybody who is not actively following cricket as well. Because personally, I'm somebody who's passively following cricket but is extremely passionate about cricket, and I agreed for this conversation, and I wanted to have this conversation with you because of the content that's there in the book. It's extremely interesting. But do tell me this, especially since Lalit Modi's departure, do you think IPL has somehow sobered down? Especially because of the pandemic now, the crowds are halved and the cheerleaders are suddenly missing.
I don't think that's because of Lalit Modi. I think towards the end of Lalit Modi's peak, this was certain to happen. I mean, the wildness of the IPL in its initial years was actually not working for the tournament. Cricket had to take center stage with or without Lalit, and that's what has happened. Even if Lalit was there, if you ask me, would cricket have taken center stage? Yes, had to take. And in terms of crowds, if you see the last few games, Sharan, Kolkata was packed, 110,000 in Ahmedabad was packed. So the moment the pandemic is under control and the home and away matches are again restarted, I think the dip in television ratings in the middle of this year's IPL was because of the fact that home and away matches weren't being played. So Kolkata was playing in a DY Patil Stadium in Mumbai. No one cares. I mean, if I'm a KKR supporter and my team is playing in Pune, how the hell does it matter to me? It doesn't. So that is at the core of the IPL. So the moment that formula comes back in 2023, assuming COVID is under control and vaccination and therapeutics take over, I think the IPL has not lost its gloss at all. Number one. Number two, would it have sobered down? Yes, it would have sobered down, because even Lalit Modi would have realized that that is where it had to go to survive as a product. It was no longer a novelty after a couple of years or an exotic product. It was a robust brand which is recession free. And even Lalit would have understood that and done that. I mean, Lalit's point about that during the pandemic, for example, if you read one of his interviews, that we could have used IPL money to help out. We could have used, I mean, all these points, if you think, are not about the sensationalist part of the IPL or the over dramatic parts of the IPL. It is about using the property to do some real social work. So even if Lalit was around, I think it would have sobered down, because during the pandemic, you are making a hoo-ha with cheerleaders. Come on. I mean, no one would have done that. It's ultimately you are giving sport back, because sport is an opiate of life. But at the same time, your country is going through a worst pandemic just after the second wave. Was it an aspect of enjoyment? No. It was all of us getting our lives back through sport. But we have to understand and be rational as to what is permissible, because people were losing their lives on the other hand. So I think even Lalit would have, I mean, anybody would have understood that.
Right. Do you ever think that there will be a saturation point for some entertaining league, even like the IPL? Because at the end of the day, cricket also, like many other fields, keeps on evolving. So do you ever see this going out of fashion someday and some other form of cricket taking over?
This is a good question. I think the IPL will not go out of fashion. I think 50 over cricket will go out of fashion. Because the IPL, you know why? Because, take the World Cup and take the IPL, and that's a good example to give. The IPL is a bigger property than the World Cup. Why? Because in the IPL, every day India wins. So tomorrow, we take this T20 World Cup in Australia. God forbid if India loses to Pakistan like in Dubai. Gone. Because automatically fan interest in India will plummet. The tournament is gone. The IPL, whether you're a Chennai supporter or a Delhi supporter, how does it matter? When MS Dhoni scores, all of us celebrate. Rohit scores, Virat scores, we celebrate. India wins. So the IPL as a property will always remain robust. The problem will become with international cricket. I think Test cricket will always have its clientele of purists. Me one. I think T20 cricket will survive. The challenge will be for the 50-over game. So the 50-over game next year in India, the 2023 World Cup, will be a big test for the 50-over format.
You say that test will survive, but again, in your book, you also understate, I think in Lalit's words, that the domestic leagues were becoming very boring and nobody were actually looking at it, whether it's the Ranji Trophy or other domestic leagues that we have in India. So is there an evolution for international cricket or domestic cricket in terms of the conventional games that's there? Because IPL again is entertainment.
We've seen, Sharan, to an extent, we've seen the introduction of day-night tests. We've seen the introduction of the pink ball. We have seen Ranji Trophy cricket, for example, as you speak in your city. The final is going on where Sarfaraz gets a big 100 and one of his best. We have seen interest. So, the marketability of the red ball game in terms of viewership, in terms of television broadcast, proper television broadcast of domestic cricket. So we have seen evolution. And that is where I think bilateral 50-over cricket is what will lose out, because they have no context. Why on earth should I watch a series 5 days before the IPL or after the IPL, where two teams are playing? I've watched 2 months of incessant white ball, and now all of a sudden I'm supposed to watch 50-over cricket or whatever cricket, when there is no World Cup of that format round the corner. Makes no sense to me. So the bilateral series gradually might just lose context. That is where that particular format will have a challenge.
This has been a lovely conversation with you, but before we conclude, I have a few questions to ask you, and I hope you will take out some time to answer them. So as a child, when I was growing up, like millions of other children, I was very passionate about cricket. But as Indian cricket is known for, or was known for, it is embedded with a lot of corruption, and slowly it's getting better by the day. So millions of youngsters like us who dropped the bat and picked up the pen today are in journalism. And obviously, we were a little disturbed when we heard about the allegations that were made against you by Wriddhiman Saha. And we have actually grown up seeing you on television, and I completely enjoyed your book. But you have not reacted so far. Is there something you would like to say about this?
This has been a different conversation, Sharon. So I would again choose not to react at this point in time. I think that reaction can be the subject of another conversation with you. Let me say this: I'm aware of the sanctions. I'm mindful of them, but I'll leave it at that. That's a different conversation for some other day. I clearly have a point of view which I told the committee. But as I said, I'm mindful of the sanctions, but this conversation is not the subject today. Some other point in time with you, I will definitely address it.
I understand, but we have had the conversation about the book, and I'm not saying that we will look at this in binaries, that somebody is wrong and somebody is right. These sort of episodes may happen, and everybody has their lows and highs, but at the end of the day, do you regret that this entire incident happened? And by regret, I do not mean that you need to be apologetic about it.
Again, I will repeat what I just told you. I will address all of these questions in time. I'm aware of certain sanctions which have been imposed. Time will come when you and I will have this conversation. That time is not today.
So you're pleading the fifth today?
Pardon me?
You're pleading the fifth for now?
No, I'm just saying this is not the platform for a conversation on this particular subject. And that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying a yes or a no. I'm not saying anything to it, nor am I shying away. I'm saying this is a conversation that was meant for Maverick Commissioner and the book. And that's what you and I have had over the last 25 or 30 odd minutes. I will, whenever it is time to address these questions, I will absolutely agree to another interview with you, and we will address these questions. All I'm saying is today is not the day.
I will respect your words. And now that you've gone on record and said that we will come back to you and address these concerns that the entire nation wants to know, we will be in touch with you, and I hope you can join us for a conversation.
100%. And I'm making it clear again that yes, we will absolutely address these concerns. But let the time come. Today was not the day. It was a pleasure talking to you about the book, and that is the only reason. But please be known that once it is appropriate, I will absolutely address the concerns, and I'm mindful of what has been said or what has transpired, or rather the sanctions. I'm mindful of them, and I'm choosing my words very carefully. Obviously, I could have said a lot more, but today is not the day or the platform to be talking.
Fair enough. Thank you so much for joining me. It was a real pleasure to do this conversation, to have this conversation with you. I am a political journalist by inclination, but cricket is something I'm really passionate about. And this was a breather for me as well. And congratulations on your lovely book. This is available on Amazon and on different platforms. I'm making the plug for you. But please do buy the book. Please do read the book. And very good luck with your movie. And I hope it is a huge success.
It was an absolute pleasure talking to you, and good that a political journalist is doing this, because the sport ultimately is political. So someone who has the how do I put it, credentials to do this, and look forward to many more conversations with you in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Please do let us know what you thought about this conversation below. We will be having more such conversations in the future. This is your host, Sharan Sethi, signing off until the next time.